Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share the agenda. What you should see is the front title page of the agenda. This is Rich Prendergast speaking for the town of Old Lyme, WPCA. We have a quorum tonight. The agenda, well, first off, Randy Nixon is excused. There are maybe a couple other members that might be joining a little bit later. Our agenda tonight is to go over the approval of minutes from March 15th, a budget update, business of Soundview Sewers, miscellaneous area in miscellaneous area B, specifically a Clean Water Fund application, additional funding and grant applications, go through correspondence, new business, public comment, and adjournment. So at the first thing is a motion. Can I get a motion to, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everyone's face. Because we're doing this virtual, we'll have to poll each individual member on any motions. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 15th?
I'll make a motion, Dimitri.
Thank you, Dimitri. Can I have a second? Okay, I'm going to send a request for unmute for Steve Tsunami. You should get it. Can I have a second for this motion?
After the motion, I have a discussion item.
Whoops. Well, first let's take care of the motion, and then what we do is we have a discussion and we can vote on it. So Steve, I think you are,
Right.
Can you speak, Steve?
Yeah, I can speak now. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. So I don't know if we got a second. I might have missed that.
I wouldn't they're wrong. I don't know if you second them and then discuss it or.
Well, let me explain the way the motions, the minutes have to be produced in a timely fashion. They're unapproved. We approve them now. They can be wrong. And then we vote to amend them in the discussion. We do the vote.
You need a second.
We need a second. Yes.
To discuss it. Okay, I'll second them then.
Okay, now, open discussion. I've got my own comment.
Okay, this is Andrea.
I'll go second. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, so this is Andrea. I would want to amend the finance report. The way it's written. I would like to say that a review of the accounting revealed that there was an outstanding invoice, which and then made whole, and that was the bonding for the attorney, and we made that whole by putting it under the carry forward as appropriate. I mean, not how it's written.
So is the amendment to say that it was mischaracterized as far as the illegal invoice payment?
I would say that we reviewed the accounting and it revealed that there was a past outstanding invoice that we made whole. And that was for the attorney who did the bonding.
Okay.
Not that we just decided to pay for something.
Okay. So this is being recorded, and Erica, before we go on, does that make sense to you? Do you think you can decipher what that amendment is?
Yeah, I just took it word for word.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Erica.
So Steve, do you have a comment?
Well, that was my comment.
Okay.
That was also my comment. I would say that I would write it up that, we've paid some of that bill. We paid some of the bill, and we withheld some of it, and we decided to pay the balance at the last meeting. I mean, that's really what happened there. It's an old bill. We investigated charge to make sure it was okay, and that was it.
Okay.
So
Okay. Any other comments?
So actually, I have a comment, even though I wasn't there,
Yeah.
because
Go ahead, Rob.
listed as absent. I assume Rich Prendergast was not there and should also be listed as absent.
You're correct. I was not there. I was absent. So the amendment is to have Rich Prendergast listed as absent.
little doggy.
Any other comments?
Erica, it was a good first try. So they're hard to do.
No,
Overall.
it's good. I've never had any,
You did.
to be amended on the other ones that I do. So I'm glad that you guys are paying attention so well.
This is part of the process. This is okay. So I have a comment. I saw from the minutes that it was a mention that Chairman Prendergast doesn't answer questions, continually ask questions or something like that. It's like in the last paragraph. So I'd like to, although that probably is true, I answer all the questions that come in the email. Some of the questions, the answers are not liked, but I answer all the questions. I get asked some of the same questions over and over again, and sometimes I direct people to the frequently asked questions on the website. So anyways, that's my comment. Is there any other comments before we ask for a vote on accepting these minutes with the amendments? I'm not hearing any. So I would like to call a vote to accept the minutes from March 15th. Andrea, what do you say? Yes or no?
I would accept them with the amendments.
Thank you. Dimitri, what do you say? Yes or no?
Yes.
Steve Urbinitz, what do you say? You're muted right now.
Rich, once we mute ourselves, we can't unmute. It's
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I just sent, so I think you can speak now, Steve.
Yes. Yes. A motion
You-
to approve. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Rob, what do you say?
I'll abstain since I was not there.
Okay. Steve, I just sent you a, okay. Steve,
I agree. I approve with amendments.
okay. Motion carried. Motion carried. So the next item on our agenda is the budget update. For this, I'm gonna show the budget summary, and I'll ask Andrea to lead us through this. Give me a second so I can share that with everybody. So it should come up now. I have the top half of the screen. So Andrea, do you want to give us an update?
Yes. So the only new expense that was paid was the $93 for the clerk fee. However, we do think that some of the encumbered items that we thought were expense were not, so I need to investigate that, and I'll have a report for you for next meeting. So I have everything as expensed, and it came to our attention that might not have happened. So I will follow up, but we have a new activity on for this month, and that was the clerk expenditure.
Okay, and just to clarify, we submitted a request, and what some people may or may not know is the finance department is down a person, so it's possible that they're behind. And it's not something that we're going to miss some kind of payment or anything like that. It's we're finishing up an old payment, but there's no risk of finance charges or anything like that. Is that
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah.
Any comments about the budget? We haven't really spent a lot of our budget, to be quite honest. But any comments about our budget or invoices this past month?
We only have one.
Okay. Gonna stop sharing. So
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm gonna move on to the next item, which is the Soundview miscellaneous area B. Take a look at my notes. Let's see. So the first one is the Clean Water Funding application status. We submitted the Clean Water Fund application updates. So if you don't know how this goes, is apparently at each stage, we have to submit the Clean Water Fund application and reassert everything is true and accurate and so forth. So we sometimes are asked to update forecasts and so forth. So this Clean Water Fund application we've been talking about for the last session, in this session, it was submitted and accepted. It's right now at the 60% design for Soundview. It is also incorporating some older evaluation studies, requesting reimbursement for those. And it reasserted that we did have a referendum in 2019, which, you know, it seems kind of strange to keep saying that, but we did. And it also lays out a forecast for completing the Soundview design. And the forecast is a little disappointing on my end, at least from my point of view, where it talks about completing the Clean Water Fund application and getting approval for payment for up to 60%, and then working on the 90% submittal around September. And the big news is to go, when you skip to the end, is when we'll be ready to go out for advertising for a public bid for the design would be about a year from now. This is a lot longer than I was told before. And what I was told is it's the deep that was a significant variable in getting this approved. So we're going to push the deep to approve it because, quite honestly, there hasn't been a lot of changes. Sometimes in these.
I can't hear you, Rich.
Rich, we can't hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, but we
Okay.
lost you after pushing the deep.
Okay, so I don't know what happened. I guess I just will never move. Pushing the deep, because in this case the changes haven't changed a lot. So push the deep to review the changes, and to see if we can get to the approval faster, because it seems as if that's the variable, then that's what we try to push. Now, it's not that we're trying to rush the process in it, but we do have other obligations to consider, other intermunicipal agreements that we have to show progress on. So we don't want to be the one that is holding up or maybe saying that we're not moving quick enough. Now, before I go further, Steve, do you want to talk about I should recognize that Corey Bullock has joined. He's also a WPCA member. Steve, do you want to talk about Steve Tsunami? Do you want to talk about the printing of the design? It's a 60% design review, because I think we agreed to spend a nominal charge, I think, for printing, and you made arrangements. And I don't know what the status is. If you could give me an update on that.
Sure. So I asked Jason, instead of printing them up and at one of their local printers and having to go up to get it, to print them up at Seal, which is in Essex, and I would pick them up. I haven't actually checked the status. This happened late last week. I'm not there this week, but I will check the status, and if they're available, I'll pick them up next week. There's 2 sets of printed plans that are available, and I'll bring them to the town hall, sign them out so that we can review them, and that would be the status. So they're in the process of being printed, or have been printed and in the process of waiting for me to pick them up. Rich, I do want to. Brad Yerkes contacted me today and asked me to tell the group that he could not make it. Something came up, and he was not able to make it. It's certainly a valid excuse that I think, but I'd like him not to be listed as missing, but as absent. I don't know.
Excused.
We usually say excused.
Excused. That's it.
Yeah.
So So in any event, the prints will be available early next week. Let's put it that way. One way or the other. I'll make sure that they're available. I'll have one set just so everyone knows.
And
Thank you.
Steve, you'll be able to give a communication to the WPCA members of, yeah, it's
Sure.
ready and so forth.
Yep.
So the idea of having those designs, the prints, is for the members of the WPCA and maybe that have experience with this or various, professional experience might be able to find something that's off or wrong. And it doesn't mean that.
Sorry, that's my end. I'm at a conference.
Okay. I lost my train of thought. Also, WPCA members can look at the plans and comments back. And if you could do the comments back to Steve and myself, not all the members. And the reason for that is we don't want to have the perception that we're having a public meeting without notice. So we have individuals send information back to the chairman and vice chairman. One of us will coordinate the response back to the engineers, give them feedback. Let's see.
Thank you for doing that, Steve.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. Has anybody reached out to the state of Connecticut on the fact that they're milling overlay in 156 within the next month or two?
Corey, we've been pushing the DOT to wait on that. We saw that they're putting in things on the side of the street. Are they starting to do the paving?
I see they're adjusting the catch basins now, and I see they're doing some bridge work. So from what I gather, because I have a permit for another job, and what I would gather is I have a limited time to get it in there before the mill and overlay. They have not given me a deadline. They told me, middle of June, but they're a little vague on that.
Okay, so I will take an action item to talk to the private beach associations that are also putting a sewer in, who have a connection with the DOT, and I'll ask the first selectman if he can talk to the DOT himself.
That's going to be a significant upcharge if we have to mill and overlay that entire road.
It is, and we've pushed them off, and we do. You're right. You're exactly right, and we have to do our best to make sure that they wait. And personally, I'm not an expert on road, but I see roads that I feel are a lot worse than 156. So I think we could wait a little longer. Especially, it's going to kill us if we repave it and then a year later we have to dig it up and repave it. So I'm taking an action item to try to follow up on that.
Good.
Thank you.
Corey.
Let me write a note down so I don't forget. Okay, and any other questions, comments? We just sent a unmute to Steve.
I do. Rich, that's going to fall on deaf ears.
I agree, Steve.
You're not going to. If they're raising the catch basins, they're going to mill and overlay, and that's it. They're not going to leave the catch basins up.
Well,
over
let's
several
not be
seasons.
so negative. Even if you guys are living in the real world, we also have something else helpful. We have some politicians that have been able to move the needle, and when we talk about, okay, it's going to be another $1 million. They can, because really what it is, it's reprioritizing the DOT's activities. But I hear what you're saying. Let's make our best effort and go for that.
Maybe that'll also push DEP a little bit harder too to expedite.
Well, it's usually the DEP that'll go talk to the DOT, and
Right.
they don't get along.
No, I know.
But and if someone has some other ideas, you think of something later on, you can send me an email, and I'll be happy to work something out. Let's see. Schedule. Okay, so now we're in a subject. I had sent kind of some questions to the WPCA members. Some of the questions I think are for an executive session, but some of them I just kind of want to get a pulse, or maybe it's partly to inform WPCA members of what's potentially coming. You may or may not remember or know that the state, the DEEP, has offered through the EPA up to $17 million to get in additional grants, not loans, to make the project economically feasible. One of the catches is that these would be a forgivable loan. And the other catch is that it would be up to a maximum of 50% of the project cost. So this means the private beach associations or the town of Old Lyme or a combination of both have to go out for a referendum. The DEEP prefers the town to go out. It's likely the town would go out because the town can afford the $17 million bonding, probably easier than the beach associations. So we will eventually be get the details of this, which we have verbalized, and we have it in email writing, but we don't have it in contract. So when we get it in the contract, we will likely discuss that, and we will do a motion to accept and recommend that the first selectman agree to accept the $17 million for the sewer projects and go out to a referendum. So with that, I wanted to open up a conversation with the WPCA members. If you have any concerns or questions, and I'll so anyone have any WPCA members have concerns or questions?
Rich?
Yeah, go ahead.
Steve, I think that it's great that the DEP came up with this money. It's a no risk. It keeps pretty much everyone's referendum amount at or lower than what they originally approved. It keeps the project viable, and it keeps most importantly, the DEP feels strongly enough to go 50% because they feel that we're polluting. And so I believe that they're making a strong statement that they want this project completed regardless of some of the other arguments that have existed, such as there's not enough money or it's economically unfeasible. What they've done is inject enough money to make it back to the original referendum amounts for most people to get it accomplished. And so hopefully people realize that the DEP feels strongly about this project and will not let it die very easily. But I'm glad they came up with the $17 million.
Yeah. Is to echo on that strongly, supporting this. They also mentioned we had a meeting a while back, and one of the beach associations asked to not do sewers. They used the different words, but they basically said that. And the Deep clearly and directly said we're not entertaining changing the consent orders, basically allowing to do something different. And they also said we can switch from supporting this to the compliance, which is a threat if we don't do it. They said it in the meeting in front of everybody. They've said this before, and they've written letters to the town of Old Lyme when we did try to stop it in 2015. So, anyways, any other comments about the 17 million funding and forgivable loan and going up for a town referendum? I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on to the next item. There's two more. So we're also working on revising the cost sharing agreement with the private beach associations. The revisions that were drafted were clarifications, really, not changes, clarifications of who pays for what by line item. For example, who pays for electricity, or how do we do electricity, by ownership or by flow? The common thing is by ownership or flow. And the basis of the answer will be, I think, on practicality and fairness. So those negotiations tend to be messy. But I can say this, we'll come up with an idea of what to do, and then it'll be reviewed by this committee before we agree to sign anything, which is what we've always done. So I don't know, does anyone have any comments about that? I mean, generally, I don't really have the details of what's yet, because we have not attended a meeting to find out what the hot points are, but I would bring it to the next WPCA meeting when I learn what they are. Does anyone have any comments about that?
Will the attorneys be reviewing? Of course, right? They'll be reviewing these documents.
Yeah, the town municipal attorney will review it on our behalf, and I would always like to suggest that we use the town attorney for everybody involved, but because the town attorney does a high volume, lower price work versus some of the other attorneys, but I can see how the beach associations might want an attorney that works just for them look at it. So yes, attorneys will look at it. Attorneys have looked at it.
Right.
Yep. But that's we usually try to hammer out all the details before we go to the attorneys. That way it's more efficient.
Save some money. Yeah.
Yeah. The attorneys will charge us no matter how many revisions we do. They don't care. Well, they do care, but that's the rule. So we're trying to hammer out all the agreements first and then explain it to the attorneys, and attorneys might change the words. Any other questions?
Where is Old Lyme Shores in this agreement?
They are a current member. I think your question is more like, are they going to continue participating? They are attending the meeting. They are responding to emails. I had a conversation with the president of Old Lyme Shores this afternoon. So I think they're participating, but I don't know. Because previous comments that they said they were going to try to do something different, and then the Deep said, "Sorry, you're not allowed." So we'll see where that goes.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is related to the Well, okay, so there's another item on here, and I think it's more of an executive session, but I'll bring it up for just to say, not to have a discussion, but I think I'm suggesting that we have it in an executive session some other time. And that's the ownership versus partnership. Should we get $17 million and go out for a referendum? The idea was, the initial idea, current idea is the town will get that money and have some kind of agreement with the beach associations, maybe the cost sharing agreement, percentage ownerships, where they would then give the portions of that money to them. And it would still be a shared infrastructure for the pump, for the force line, for the trunk bioxide station. There was an idea of where the town would own this, and that presents some unique situations that we probably have to discuss with legal, and there's some strategy involved, and there's some leverage involved. And for that reason, I think that might be a topic of an executive session in the future when you get a little closer to it. But does anyone have any comments about that before we move on? I'm not hearing any. Let's see. So the next item I had is we try to revisit the grinder pump situation. We have about, I think, around 9 houses that, because of our design, would require a grinder pump. However, if we had cooperation with one of the private beach associations, we might be able to tie into their system, and that would make it cleaner and easier. However, it'd make it a little bit messy for their system. In the past, they have considered it, they understood the issues, and they rejected it. But maybe time has as a way of changing what they're doing, and maybe they'll reconsider. And this is the time to have those kind of conversations with them while we're finalizing our design, because that would require a design change. I generally think that's a good idea. So, and I don't see it hurting us. I mean, it's proposing something. I don't know the details, and of course, again, we wouldn't agree to anything, but we'd hammer out the details and then have a discussion with the WPCA committee and vote on it. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. There's one more thing, and then I want to propose a motion. And so the one more thing is, it's possible that we might need a new site for the bioxide station, which really is unfortunate because we have the permit and the zoning and everything for it. It's ready to go. And the thing is, it's in Old Lyme Shores, and Old Lyme Shores, prior to the deep meeting, thinking that they could try some alternatives, like different technology that technically works in some applications but wouldn't work in Old Lyme for 100% of the houses. They found out that the deep was not allowing them to restudy alternate systems. But they said that they're not interested in the bioxide station, but they might have changed their mind. But we may have to come up with a new location. It's early yet. I don't have any new locations, but that's the topic for discussion that we're going to have with them as far as the cost sharing agreement adjustments, which, that's within the cost sharing agreement. It's an item. So does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. So here's the motion that I would like to propose. And technically, we don't need to do this motion because we have a budget line item for legal. But I'd like to have a motion to have a conversation and do some billable work with our legal counsel and our bonding counsel related to the $17 million forgivable loan, as well as the ownership versus partnership. And it's basically research. But it's going to trigger billable hours. So I was thinking there's some kind of motion, someone could suggest a motion of not to exceed $2,000 or something like that. We have plenty of money in our legal budget line item to handle this. So basically, I'm wondering if someone would like to make a motion that I'm suggesting.
I'll make a motion, Richard.
Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase the motion, and Dimitri, you can agree if it's correct. Make a motion to speak with legal and bond counsel for discussions about forgivable loans, as well as ownership versus partnership, not to exceed $2,000.
Yes, I agree with the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Who seconded that?
That was Corey Bullock.
Thank you, Corey. I missed it. Okay, so now open discussion. Anyone have a comment, concern? Okay, so let's call for a vote. I'm going to poll each person. Andrea, how do you vote, for or against the motion? Andrea, I couldn't hear that. And it looks like you're not muted.
Hey, Rich?
Yeah.
Right. I have a discussion. For some reason, whenever I mute myself, I can't unmute myself.
Yeah, that's that must have been the way it was set up. Sorry about that.
All right. So I'd like to discuss.
I'm sorry.
this.
Go ahead.
I have a discussion. I think it may be a little too early for this motion because we don't even know what the changes are. You know, we don't have the loan documents. We don't have the changes. And as far as ownership versus partnership, maybe we should wait till, I mean, what exactly are we going to investigate? Whether it's better to own the system or be partners with the other WPCAs?
Well, I'm looking at the legal, the bond counsel does the forgivable loan stuff, and I'm looking for things to watch out for. And the legal would say things to, include or things to keep out. So I'm looking for basically advice, not necessarily, and maybe they don't have advice, but
Wouldn't the more efficient thing to do would be to get the loan documents from DEP and give them to our council to review?
Well, I think we're talking about strategy to steer it in the direction that we want. So we will have to send the documents we get from the deep back, but we really aren't asking for anything yet. So that's the question is, we could wait, but I thought it would be smart to have a conversation to see if we get some advice from professional counsel.
Okay, advice as to what? Ownership or partnership?
As to what's involved in a forgivable loan is for number one. And number two, what is the difference between having having us own it versus having a partnership, to see if there's pros and cons to that.
Right. I think it may be a little early for that, but I mean, because he doesn't have any information to go on. Would the process be that we got advice from our attorney and then went back to DEP and said, this is what we'd like written up?
Oh, the way I operate is I like to do a little research before we go into a meeting, And that way I might be able to steer the conversation or steer the direction into a place that we like it to go. That's the only thing. It's versus
Okay.
just sitting there and being given here it is, and I have no experience. That's all.
All right. Well, all right. So I mean, I guess I guess if you feel more comfortable having advice, I just don't know how much beneficial advice we're going to get from a hypothetical document that they don't have anything to review. On the other side, whether we own it or share it, they may have more a more concrete answer as to the benefits and things. So, I mean, I'll support 5 hours of billing for them to look into that, whatever that would be. I don't know what they charge, $400, $350.
Well, we have the motion on the table is not to exceed $2,000.
Yeah. Okay.
So, there's two different hourly rates. So, I'll be careful not to go over the $2,000 if that's the situation.
All right. I mean, I don't want any one of us to feel as though they're unprepared for any major decisions. So I'll support that.
I'm not making a decision, but it's going in and having conversation and having an active conversation versus a take it or leave it discussion. It's research really.
So, Rich, I do think it's important to get an education and get that opinion. So I am going to say yes.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So let's call a vote. Andrea, how do you vote? Yes or no for the motion?
Yes, I said yes.
Okay. Steve, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dimitri, how do you vote?
Yes.
Corey, how do you vote?
Yes.
Stephen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimous. Let's see where we are on the agenda. So we've covered the clean water funding application and the status of additional funding grant applications. Is there any other Soundview Sewer and miscellaneous Area B issues that I haven't talked about that someone wants to talk about, a WPCA member? I'm not hearing any. So I'm going to go to the next item, which is correspondence. The correspondence, I didn't send a head of a correspondence, but I did send a summary of some notes I took. We were requested from Senator Martha Mox to answer a number of questions, which I did, and then have a meeting with some concerned citizens in the Soundview neighborhood that I think it's fair to characterize are not in favor of the sewers, which we did on March 29th. The topics that were discussed are not new topics, and I answered them with my belief and available facts that I have. There was some confusion that I'll say here just in case someone who's listening in might not understand that the way the design process goes is a 30% approval, then a 60% approval, then a 90% approval. Each stage is approved by the DEEP. Each stage, the design gets modified. We're currently at the official 60%, but our plans our engineering firm told us that they're ready for 90%, but you have to get 60% approved first. There's a number of other issues that were brought up, and I'm not going to go to each one of them. There was comments about the price tag of this is 30, 60, 80,000 per house. The comments that other beach associations are making, those prices are not what we're talking about for the Sound View. Our last estimate last summer, I think our median average was 34 for the format that the beach associations use, but our average is about $31,000 or $1,000 2 payments a year for the average house, and that includes a $6,000 connection fee. I think it's an obvious question, if everyone is thinking about it, is if we get this funding from the Clean Water Funds for $17 million, what does that do to the cost? It clearly lowers the cost of this project. It's probably not appropriate to give an exact figure now. It doesn't cut it in half, but it cuts it significantly. We have to figure out what's the DEEP is actually going to give us and how it impacts us and what the share of Soundview would be. But we plan on fine-tuning those estimates and presenting it to the public as soon as we can feel that they're more solid estimates. Related to this same correspondence, I was asked to meet with Frank Papalardo of the Soundview Commission. And when we had the discussion, it turns out that it was a discussion about the components of cost. So I did provide some information about the components of the cost, and I did also explain how some of the components, it's probably not appropriate to share what our estimates are because we lose some negotiation leverage with people that will be bidding. That's why we don't have a itemized list. We do have an itemized list, but we don't share it on purpose. Because I'm afraid that we'll go out to bid and a certain bidder will see this and they'll just add to it. And, I think it's a common thing is if you tell somebody how much money you're willing to pay, they're going to ask for that. So we're trying to be responsive. And as far as correspondence, there's some other correspondence that was arranging these meetings, the phone calls, conference calls, but there was no other correspondence that had specific questions. Does anyone have any WPCA members have a question about the correspondence before I move on to the next item? Or the meeting? Okay. I'm not hearing any. So the next thing is new business. Is there any WPCA members suggesting some new business? Okay. Not hearing any of that. I'm going to move on to the next item. This item is a optional public comment, and if you've done this before, you'll know. If you haven't done it before, the way it works is you state your name, and since we're doing virtually, I might have to referee whoever's name I hear. I'll recognize them. They can speak, hopefully about those WPCA issues. I will get to, if 2 people speak, we will get to whoever is able to speak. I'm going to try to adjust this now to unmute attendees. Hang on a second. So everyone should be able to unmute themselves. If you have a public comment you want to make, please go ahead and state your name and I'll recognize you.
I guess I'll go first. This is Mary Daly. Do you hear me?
Mary Daly, you're recognized.
Thank you. A few questions, little questions, I guess. I attended the zoning meeting last night in regard to property on Harvard Avenue and a request to build an 8x10 structure on that property, which is now vacant, utilizing it basically for parking. My question to the WPCA in regard to clean water funds regulations, if there is an 8x12 to 8x10 structure built on that property, even if it is quote grandfathered, when and if sewers are installed, can that footprint be increased to, I think it was 13,000 square feet as suggested? Or is that a one and done deal? Once you put the structure up there, you're assessed for that 8x10 building according to the EDU plan, and that is pretty much written in stone and can't be modified. You can't go from 800 square feet to 13,000 square feet. That's my first question, because I do believe that the Clean Water Fund stipulate clearly it cannot be used for building. It can only be used for existing buildings. So that's my first question. I'd like a little bit of clarification from WPCA on that. My other question, it'd be great to get rid of the grinder pumps. As you know, I've talked many times about grinder pumps. From personal experience, I think they're horrible. So I think that if you can negotiate that, that would be wonderful. I think that going into that negotiation, I think that Old Lyme Shores would probably be much more comfortable if there was individual meters on our properties, so that they knew exactly what portion of the Soundview properties were contributing toward the overall in Old Lyme Shores. And on a personal level, I really, really think that if we do pursue this, individual meters should be mandated, because we are not a cookie cutter environment. All of our houses are very unique. All of our structures are very unique. We have mixed use. We have residential year round. We have seasonal. We have commercial. No two are alike. There's no way that you can come up fairly and say without meters that going forward, you can assess individual properties on usage, which is, I think, the bigger ticket item here. In regard to ownership versus partnership, very scary concept in my opinion. It sounds like the public beach associations who actually started this project are getting wet feet and looking for the town to take responsibility in full. And I'm hoping that the WPCA certainly doesn't suggest, therefore, that the main infrastructure pieces rest solely, the responsibility financially rests solely on the 3 streets in Soundview and Area B. If that was the case, I'm certain our attorney would want to be aware of that. So those are my questions. It does sound like, and lastly, I did attend that meeting with you, Senator Marks, who asked us not to communicate about the meeting at all. And that's why you haven't seen anything in Connecticut Examiner about it. So I'm surprised that you brought it up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I'm taking some notes here. Just give me a second here. Anyone else that would like to make a public comment?
Dennis Maluzzo.
Dennis, you're recognized.
Yes, I'd like to echo what Mary said about the meters. We had talked about meters way back last year, and I think for the cost of meters, it would leave everyone's thought process as to how much effluent is leaving their property at any one given time. Understanding that there are year-round homes in the private beaches areas more than there are in Soundview. Soundview might have seasonal homes, and naturally there's industry there too with the 2 bars. and the shops. So I think you should seriously think about incorporating that, and it's probably a lot cheaper if you do it in bulk than any place else. I have not gotten a estimate from Ferguson as to what a single person's meter would cost, but I can't see that it would cost any more than 500 or 750 bucks to go in line with the outflow. Now, on a separate note, the WPCA is involved with Carmody on every HIP. I have sent in for the past 2.5 months corrections to Carmody and corrections to the WPCA, and nary an email back to me as to the disposition. Okay, and it has to do with a pump cleaning out in July of 2021. And I think this is just as important as anything because it's a town ordinance. And the WPCA isn't staying on top of it. And Carmody doesn't even call you back, even though you ask for an update. So I'd like somebody to look into that and see if there's more people that it's affecting, like myself, that maybe not even understanding Carmody's not returning or updating their records. All right. Other than that, that's about all I have at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other public comment? And probably there isn't because I don't think there's anyone else there. So we're going to close the public session. Make a couple comments. Let's see. We're not violating any clean water rules or funding. Our clean water or Soundview sewer project has always identified some potential lots that could be expanded and considered to be insignificant. The clean water funds cannot be used for economic growth, like building a mall or something like that. But if a lot is a buildable lot before sewers, it can be built on after sewers in the sewer district. It has to be identified that. It doesn't mean that it's a buildable lot because the person says so. It means that they've gone to the town or they already have something from the town that says it's a buildable lot. As far as building, shacks, whatever, it goes back to that buildable lot thing. Properties will be assessed if there's a sewer goes by them, if there's a house on it, and we try to be as fair as possible. It's not fair for someone to pay more than someone else by, formula. It's not fair for someone to wait and then, get a break later. So anyways, that's the general theme of how we're going to do this. The mention about individual meters, that is we're planning on having meters for the Soundview neighborhood versus the other neighborhoods. But I don't believe we're planning on having individual meters on every house. That begs the issue that we didn't have some kind of dynamic pricing where it's like, well, I don't use my house, so therefore I don't have to pay taxes on it, or I don't have to pay uses on it. That's just not how it works. We couldn't get financing that way. We couldn't live that way. But it's an open discussion that we could have if we need to. Let's see. As far as the Carmody not making corrections. This is the first I've heard of it, but I will follow up as an action item with Ledge Light. I looked at the desk in the town hall that is used for septic system approvals and so forth, and there's someone that comes 2 days a week. So I'll have to find out, the desk is pretty full, and I'll have to find out, what's going on with that person, and maybe they're temporarily overloaded. I don't know. They don't work for me. I'm not like the person that could fire them. The first selectman could put some pressure on Ledge Light, but only if he knows about it. Now that we know it, we could go back to it. And I don't think it's Carmody's responsibility to update the records. It's their responsibility to do the software and to see that the software works as designed. But we have an admin person that's supposed to do that, make edits. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. Does any WPCA members want to say something else?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will. I'll make that motion.
Steve made it. Dimitri seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you for spending some time tonight. I appreciate it. The town appreciates it. Have a nice night, and talk to you later. Goodbye,
Good seeing
everybody.
half of you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.